You may have the traits of Asperger syndrome and not even know it. In fact, you may have friends, family members, associates, neighbors who have traits of Asperger syndrome, and they may actually be Aspergians or Aspies, as we prefer to call them, and who knows? So, how do you know? Because so many of the traits of Asperger syndrome are evident in a lot of people. But it's the combination of many of these traits together that appears to be the deciding factor of who is and who is not an Aspie. What's more, to understand what is Asperger syndrome, typically you've got to come from the perspective of a person who actually has Asperger syndrome. Because you see, it's more than just identifying traits. It's a personality and all the combinations of the different traits put together. Nobody has that point of reference except for people with Asperger syndrome. Now, that creates rather kind of a problem because those individuals who are diagnosing those with or without Asperger syndrome and coming up with the conclusion, most of them are not Aspies themselves. So where do they get their information? Well, they've studied it, they've observed it, they've been around people with Asperger syndrome, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's something special about actually having experienced the challenges of people with Asperger syndrome. That makes a huge, huge, huge difference. So, I'm not saying don't go to a therapist. I actually encourage people to go to a therapist. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a guy who's pushing 70 years old, and my information is based on life's laboratory. I've been wherever you are in life, young person, middle-aged, older person. I've been there, done that. Maybe not the exact same experiences, but what I tell you, it just comes from my experiences. All right, so what are some of these things that we are to look for that are kind of hidden traits of Asperger syndrome? Now, I got to tell you before we dig into this that we have talked about some of these things before in the past. So you may say, okay, you said that once before, Ken. We've already heard it. But these are specifically things that may be overlooked. And so we're pulling out some of these things. We have some new things as well. So you want to listen to what? We have, I don't know, maybe 14 or 15 of these on the list. And number one is tidy. Excessively tidy. Well, maybe not excessively, but typically excessively tidy. But people with Asperger syndrome like things organized. They like things in a row. They like their closets to look good. They like their desks to be organized. And yeah, there are some exceptions, but a lot of people are tidy. You don't have to have Asperger syndrome to be tidy, and a lot of people just like things organized. So it's very possible for you to be tidy. You've got Asperger syndrome, but nobody notices. So what's the big deal? A lot of folks have their ducks in a row. A lot of people are just they're just organized people. Number two is this: schedules. People with Asperger syndrome tend to love schedules. Their life is based on schedules. Everything they do tends to be a schedule. Now, again, this doesn't apply to every person with Asperger syndrome, but we do like to have routines. We like to do things at a specific time, at a specific date. We like to go to a specific restaurant, and here's what's kind of weird. People with Asperger syndrome often eat the same thing every single day. Not all of us, but many of us. Now, personally, I don't do that. I eat the same thing every Monday, and the same thing every Tuesday, and the same thing every Wednesday, and so forth. So I'm a little bit more diverse. I eat the same thing every week. Number three is this: prefer a structured environment. Now, people with Asperger syndrome typically don't like the military because they're put in a position where they have to be around other people all the time. They got to socialize. That's kind of a negative for an Aspergian for the military. But what they do like about the military is it's very well organized. It is structured, and that suits them just fine. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was in school, I preferred assigned seating. Well, the reason is because if you don't have assigned seating, then there's this hierarchy of social prevalence. something about people as they seek out each other and they organize themselves in a social hierarchy. And where do those of us with Asperger syndrome fall into that hierarchy? At the bottom. That means in the lunchroom you got nobody to sit with. And that's embarrassing. I mean, usually it's you got no one to sit with. And so you just kind of stick out like a sore thumb, and hey, that can be embarrassing. So we like assigned seating. Airplanes. Like to have my seat, and I want to know where it is, and okay, you can have the aisle seat. I want to sit next to the window because I am amazed at the scenery. I guess if I flew all the time, that wouldn't be true, but that's got nothing to do with anything other than we like assigned seating. We like things organized. We prefer, number 3 again, is we prefer a structured environment. Number 4, you don't care for surprises. And again, just like some of the other things we talked about, this is not unique to people with Asperger syndrome. A lot of people don't like surprises. Now, surprise birthday parties, okay, yeah, we're okay with that by and large. How nice of people to think of us. Nobody may show up, but, it's a surprise nonetheless. And, hey, if you get gifts, we'll take them. All right. We're all for that. But no, just kidding aside, we don't like surprises. The plumbing just the plumbing's clogged. There's a leak in the roof. We didn't see that coming. The electricity just went out with a power storm. That bothers us immensely because we don't like surprises. But is that a sign that you're an Aspergian, that you're an Aspie? Well, nobody likes those surprises, do they? Surprise birthday parties are okay, but when Aunt Matilda shows up on your front porch unannounced and unexpected, that is a surprise that you may not like. Now, personally, I would hate that because Aunt Matilda's been dead for 10 years, so that would bother me immensely. Number 5 is this. Are you ready? Bad with hair and clothing choices. Yeah, today everybody's bad with hair. In fact, I think that's the way it's always been, particularly among young people. You guys old enough to remember, probably most of you are not, but old enough to remember 1963 when the Beatles showed up. And gone were the days of the crew cut and the flat top and guys who wore their hair like John Dillinger. That was out the door. And suddenly, everybody started wearing what they called flop-top hairdos, try to look like the Beatles. This thing with bad hair, it's always been around. Remember the long hair bands of the 1970s and 1980s? Nowadays, hair is pink and green and kind of purplish red, whatever you want it to be. People think that's cool. I don't. But here's the thing. They think I'm the one with the bad hair. I don't get it. I think my hair looks perfectly fine. I put a part in it. It goes 2 ways. I use a Flowbee to cut it. Don't waste my money on a barber. I'm okay with that. But most people, they don't like that at all. And what about my clothing? Drab? Comfortable. You call it drab if you want, but, I like dark clothing. People ask people with Asperger syndrome sometimes, why do you like dark? Black. And because they respond because dark black is the darkest black they make. And that's what we prefer. Just, it's easy to wash, easier to do your laundry. So we tend to be bad with hair and clothing. But so what? A lot of people are. And sometimes that is a sign of Asperger syndrome that nobody notices because, people have green hair nowadays. So what? People have their weird hairstyles, and they've done that for generations. So that may be something that people don't pick up on. Number 6 is this. You don't get jokes. The thing about Aunt Matilda, did you get that? Okay, then I don't know if you did or not, but whatever. Number 7 is you prefer texting and emails over phone calls. The reason is when you make a phone call, you got to talk to somebody. I don't mind talking to people, but I would prefer to send an email or a text. And some people get a little bit bothered with me because they prefer to talk. I like things in writing. I like it organized. Somebody sends me a message, I can go back, look at the email later, or I can look at the text later, and I can remind myself what it was they said. And I'm not going to record all my phone calls. That would not be cool. People Well, maybe I should because people would quit calling you. Just gave myself an idea there. Number 8 is this. Others inexplicably become angry or frustrated with you, and you have no idea why. Well, I'll tell you why. It's because you just don't get the social norms. You just don't get it. I talked about this in another video, but when I was in high school, I had girls get mad at me. I had no idea why. I mean, one minute they were real friendly, very, 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 very friendly, and the next minute they were mad at me. Apparently, I wasn't reciprocating their friendliness. Don't understand that at all. I mean, I do now, but back at the time, I just confused. I mean, what, did I say something? Did I do something? The answer is no. I said nothing, and I did nothing, and apparently that was the problem. But people do that all the time. So that could be a trait of Asperger's or could not be a trait of Asperger's. So that's one of those hidden signs that I thought of. Number 9 is this. We tend to overthink. Well, psychologists refer to this as ruminating, but we just I don't like the term regurgitate, but that's kind of what it is. We ruminate, kind of like a cow chews its cud over and over. We chew our thoughts over and over and over again. I don't see a real problem with that always. Sometimes I think it's a good thing. It's good to rethink and think some things, but other things you obsess over them, particularly negative things. You just think yourself into a state of depression. No, that's not good. Now, I typically take a walk every day. I think I've missed 2 days in the last 6 months, and I'm going to make those up. But I walk about 2.5 miles every day. It takes me about an hour. I'm not a fast walker, but when I'm walking, I think. I kind of ruminate. In fact, a lot of the ideas for these videos come during my walking. So those are walking sessions. And I'm ruminating. I don't see a problem with that. It could be a good thing, but that is something that doesn't everybody do that. I mean, everybody thinks. Some people seem to think more than others, which is kind of obvious, but everybody thinks. So that is a sign of Asperger syndrome that a lot of people don't catch on to because everybody does it to some degree. We just seem to do it more than others. Number 10 is this. We are fond, speaking of people with Asperger syndrome, we are fond of nature-soothing sights and soothing sounds, kind of like the ocean, you know. I like to go to the ocean and find a place on the beach, nighttime, open the window, and just enjoy the sounds of the ocean, waves, the tide coming in, going out, whatever it's doing, the waves. And summertime, when warm weather, in Florida, it's always warm, it seems. I like to go out at night and sit where I can see the beach, and maybe depends on the time of month, time of year, maybe see the moon, and just quiet. Nothing but that repetitive sound of the waves. You know what? Nature is stimming. I'm okay with that, just like me. We just kind of fit together. I love to go out in the woods and take a walk. You know, I mentioned that I walk 2.5 miles every day. It used to be that I would actually go every day, or not every day, but 3 or 4 times a week. I'd go to a state park, and I'd just go out in the woods and have a nice walk. And there's nothing more soothing than on a cool day, all by yourself, out on the top of a hill, walking down a trail, listening to the rustling of the leaves, feeling the cool air, mussing up your already mussy hair. Again, nation seems to be stemming, and I was just right there in the middle of it. Absolutely love it, plus the scenery, just all alone. I mean, what could be better than that? But doesn't everybody like to go out in the woods? Doesn't everybody like the ocean? I guess they do, but that is kind of something that is Aspergian. But it's not exclusive. We don't have a franchise on it. A lot of people like that. So it's one of those things that could be a hidden sign that you are Aspergian. Number 11 is this: you are detail oriented. This can drive people crazy. But a lot of people are detail oriented. You like things not only in order, but you like the details ordered. You don't like to skip over stuff. You want every, what do you call that? Jot and tittle? I don't even know what that is. Hebrew, I think. Every jot and tittle in order, exactly placed. Every T crossed and every I dotted. That would be a better way to say it. We like things just beyond orderly. We want them detailed. One little thing is out of place that can drive us nuts. There's something on the carpet. What is that? One little thing, and you ever done this? You take your vacuum cleaner and you run over that little thing about 100 times. I mean, it'd be easier just to bend over and pick it up. But no, you're not going to be defeated by a little speck of dust. You're going to run your vacuum over till you get it. Well, again, a lot of people like that. A lot of people are detailed oriented. But you can see, I think, the picture here. We start putting all of these things together. And when we do that, what we come up with is a personality style, a combination of traits which composes, make it sound artsy, composes a personality style. And we have a name for that, Asperger syndrome. You readily see, this is number 12, you readily see a better way of doing things. I remember years ago when I worked at a restaurant, fast food restaurant, and they had paper cups. I found a better way of counting those because at the end of the night you had to do inventory and you had to count the paper cups. That was the only way of keeping track of how many drinks you sold. Why they needed to do that, I don't know, but they do for accounting purposes. So I guess so they know how to order product. So I figured, some of these packages of cups are partially used. So why not write the number on the top of the package so you know how many are gone and how many are there, so you don't have to go through and count every single one of them. I mean, it's kind of obvious. If there's 25 in this stack, and 25 in that stack, and 25 in that stack, 25 in that stack, there's 100 of them. You don't have to count all of them. But then if you write the number on the package, how many are in there, that saves the next guy from having to count all of them, but they didn't like that idea. It actually worked. It was quite functional. But if somebody wouldn't write down the number, then it no longer works. So you readily see a better way of doing things, more efficient and often more effective. And that may not be the best example, but that's an example. Number 13 is this. Others won't listen to you when you tell them better ways of doing things, and you don't understand why. Well, I understand why, but at the time, at the moment, they don't really, you don't really grasp. I mean, hey, I just showed you a better way of doing this. It's more efficient, it's more effective. Probably even how to make a YouTube video about it, and they just don't do it. And I think the reason why is because it's an ego thing. Because people, they have this social hierarchy that people with Asperger syndrome don't get. Who cares? Why do we have to have a hierarchy? Why can't we just all get along and, work together as a team and so forth and so on? It's much more efficient, more organized, a whole lot better, but that's not the way the human mind works. People love to organize themselves. I don't think they can help it. I say they love to do it. I think it's just innate. It's natural. They organize themselves in a social hierarchy. And the people with Asperger syndrome, as I mentioned earlier, usually wind up at the bottom of that. And there's a psychological term for that. It's called social defeat. And nobody wants to be defeated, but the person with Asperger syndrome isn't thinking of social defeat or social hierarchy or any of that. We're thinking, let's put this stuff in order because it's more efficient. But the other guy is thinking, well, I can't do it your way because that would make you better than me, and I don't want you to be better than me. I want to be better than you, and so I'm not going to do it your way. Does that make sense to you? Absolutely not. Not to me anyhow, but to people, normal neurotypical people, makes perfect sense. Well, then again, maybe they just don't think about it. I don't know. Number 13 again is they don't want to listen when you suggest doing things more effectively and more efficiently. And that, by the way, is one of the reasons why I love being self-employed, because I always took my own ideas. Some of them didn't work out so well, but enough did that things worked overall. Number 14 is this. You are viewed as a loner, and oftentimes you find that harmful. People would, not always, but would occasionally just happen to notice that I was a person who tended to hang out by myself. I had a few friends, people I'd hang out with. I didn't mind doing that, but overall, I was pretty much always by myself. People would notice that. Guy's a loner. Okay, when I was younger, they'd say I was shy. Timid, I got older. I don't think anybody ever called me inhibited, though I was, but they just said, loner, kind of a label they put on you. But a lot of people like to be alone. A lot of people have good ideas. A lot of people, well, everybody, fits into this social hierarchy thing. And so how do you tell when somebody has Asperger syndrome and they're just not fitting in, they're just not at the top of the hierarchy? How do you know? How do you know when somebody just doesn't like to be around people? They're just loners. Doesn't mean they have Asperger syndrome. So that's one of the signs that we can conclude is maybe a hidden trait of Asperger syndrome. And then number 15, this is the last one. And this is the one that I love, by the way. People with Asperger syndrome tend to be effective. They have effective empathy for people who they sense are loners. So if you are a person who is by yourself and alone, most people, neurotypical people, may and often do see that person not as a loner, but as a loser. Somebody, again, the social hierarchy thing where they're trying to climb the ladder. They see this guy, he's all alone. Oh, I don't want to hang around with him. I don't want anything to do with that guy or that woman or that girl, whoever it is, because they are a social liability. I want to hang out with a popular guy so I can kind of suck up to some of his or her popularity and it'll rub off on me, I guess. I don't know how they think. I guess that's how it works. But if you have Asperger syndrome and you see this guy who is alone and sitting by himself or not talking to anybody, your natural inclination is because you empathize with this person. You have effective empathy. Keep in mind there are two kinds, actually there are four kinds, but two primarily kinds of empathy. And effective empathy simply means you have affection. And so you see this person sitting alone, being alone, nobody talking to them, feel sorry for them. And so you go up and try to talk to them, and you try to bring them at least into your circle to give them a little bit of love, a little bit of sunshine. Speaking of love and sunshine, what could be more loving and have more sunshine than clicking on one of those rectangles that you see on your screen at this very moment? Because we got a whole lot more to talk about. Don't forget, give this video a like, thumbs up, talk to you later.